What prompted Freedom Park's recent intergenerational dialogue on the concepts of freedom? How best can racial stereotypes in the country be addressed? What role can the youth play towards promoting social cohesion and nation building? What can be made of the 20th anniversary of the adoption of the Constitution? What time is it? It's question time. Welcome to the show. My name is Mpho. Freedom Park in Pretoria is a site of remembrance where South Africa honors those who sacrificed their lives in the struggle for freedom. As part of celebrating Freedom Month, it hosted an intergenerational dialogue on the concepts of freedom in April. The event was aimed at reaffirming the role of the youth in building a united, democratic, non-racial and non-sexist South Africa. Meanwhile, Freedom Park hosted a panel discussion over the weekend. The gathering was organized to mark 20 years of the adoption of the Constitution by Parliament on 8th May 1996. But of what importance is the preservation of the country's history? We are live, and if you can call us and your views. The numbers to dial 089-1104-210. Our Twitter handle at QuestionTime24. Today I'm quite honored. I've got history walking on two. My guest, Mark Shinas, he's a freedom stalwart. Bandrani Jeremiah Neforobodwe. He's a former ZAPU president and former Robben Islander himself. Professor Gessler Mushenkondo is a counselor at Freedom Park. Let me welcome you, elders. I feel very, very young today having you here. Prof, let me just start with you. Intergenerational dialogue, what informed it?
I think what informed it is our awareness that it's extremely urgent for us to deepen understanding among the youth of three things. They've got to have a deeper understanding of the history of the struggle, a deeper understanding in that context of the meaning of freedom.
Yeah.
And at the dialogue, we referred them to specific clauses in the Constitution, the 7 or the 8 freedoms. So we took them through very, very carefully. And then two, we linked up the idea of freedom with the idea of human rights.
Okay.
We said, human rights are there as means, as mechanisms for achieving freedom. You can't achieve freedom unless you are empowered by a sense of rights. You have a right to do, they have a right to do. So I think the Constitution has the objectives of freedom, but provides the means to achieve freedom.
Okay.
And then thirdly, we said it's extremely important for them to understand the conditions of freedom. There's a freedom from something. Generally, the freedom from apartheid laws. So the freedom from, but the freedom to do something. When you are free, how are you going to use your freedom? So we took them through the basic framework of that. Fourthly, we say it's important for the youngsters to understand the major forces that shaped the struggle. Fortunately, there were three. Unfortunately, Mrs. Gandhi is not here. There were three organizations that are universally acknowledged as having driven liberation struggles. The first one is the ANC. The students have to know the history of the ANC and its basic principles. And two, to understand exactly why the ANC has been ruling power for it. But the ANC was not the only organization. Firstly, there was the Pan-Africanist Congress. It's important for the kids to understand the reasoning, the rationale beyond the Pan-African Congress. The major document, the major figures. I mean, referred to the founding president of the PAC, and I'm sure Mark Shinas will talk about it. And then we said also, not only PAC, black consciousness in the persons of Neofoldo and Steve Biko and other. Biko had a major role to play.
Yes.
So I was saying that the interplay of forces, and to understand the struggle in its complexity, you must understand the various positions taken over time by the three major movements in the country.
The Tower is here himself, yourselves as activists, you organized very much from the SASO days at university, tertiary institutions. And 2016, we are seeing, the activism within tertiary institutions reignited. Is this what you would really one day rest, in peace, knowing that you have achieved?
Yeah, I think you are getting into the matter that we dealt with also at the Intergenerational Dialogue.
Yes.
Because we were trying to say to the younger generation that every generation has its own issues.
Yes.
And that what the previous generation like us have brought in should be questioned. It's not the end of the struggle. The generation of today must begin to say, you brought this, we can vote, we can do. But that's not only the vote that is necessary. Any society that is brought about by struggle has got now to enter another phase of making sure that the fruits of that struggle are taken to the people. So we were saying to the younger generation, I would not even be surprised that you are finding the younger generation at universities and other places toy, because it is their time to question even the freedom that me and you might have fought for, to question whether it is good enough to be celebrated as it is, whether it cannot be taken a step further. And for me as an old generation person, I would say you shouldn't be surprised that even this generation that is toy, it will find another generation which will toy against what it has created. So that is how society works.
Dadashinas, the African child, yes, they are toying, and as Nefes said, it's part of life. That's how we evolve as human beings. But that African child today, when he or she toys, burns down schools.
Quite true. That is what is evident. I think there's talk about what is going on in Vuani, for instance, but it's not the only instance. It's a national tragedy, as you say, where communities are out to demand for services against a background of a regime that is held to be very corrupt. And that is a challenge. But from an intergenerational perspective,
yes,
we are saying that some of these problems arise because the basic conceptions of the struggle somewhere along the road have been abandoned. They are not educated about what the founding fathers of the struggle were all about. And that from the very conception, if you look at Dr. Nkrumah's Ghana, this was supposed to be a continental process. And the challenges of neoliberal forces which were pulling us as societies into different directions had a very, very detrimental effect and weakened the developmental stage. And it's what you say to the emerging generation. Well, you are free, but as free people, be free to question the past.
Okay, hold it there. Let's take Itumeleng. Itumeleng, you are in Pretoria. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Mpo. I have a question I want to ask, is it possible for politicians or for politics to give us equality? Because my understanding of politics is that politicians want to be in charge of the means of production. They want to be in charge of the resources of the country.
Yes.
And they choose whom they want to share those resources with. Is it possible for politicians or politics to give us equality that we every day cry of? And then I also want to ask about governance.
Okay.
My understanding of governance is that you must do what you must do the right thing at the right time to the right people, aligning those actions with the constitutions. Is it also possible for politicians to do that, to give us effective governance?
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay. We're going to take a quick break. When we return, Nef will deal with the politics, and Prof, you'll take governance issues. But for now, we're taking a quick break. 089-110-4210 is the number to dial. Our Twitter handle @QuestionTime24. We shall return shortly.
Technology isn't all scary. There's also fun stuff like gaming.
Lots of women do play games, whether it's on their phones or their tablets.
Then there are Africans who are using new tools to make other people's lives much easier.
We typed the whole CV on a small, QWERTY Nokia phone.
For all these and other technology and social media news, join me, Spumelele Zondi, every Sunday at 7:30 p.m. Central African Time on SABC News.
Welcome back. You're still watching Question Time. My guest today, Mark Shinas. These are all struggle veterans and freedom fighters. Pandiran Neforobode and, of course, Professor Nkondo here. Let's start with you, Nef. Politics. Will politicians ever willingly give up power, or do we have to be fighting for that and all that?
Yeah, this can be answered in twofold.
Okay.
The first is that we have created a society which has got mechanism to remove governments if those governments are not able to satisfy our needs, right? Through the constitution that is there, you've got times when you can go and vote for the party that you believe will bring about what you want. That is the first thing. Okay. The second thing is actually a question that emanates from what the speaker was saying, which is it possible, right, to have equality, right, under the present circumstances that we are governed under, right? Now, that is a very serious question because it calls on citizens and all of us to actually critically examine what has been brought as a victory and whether, in fact, the compromises that were made were not compromises that would not be able to bring about that equality. So at that level, indeed, the speaker might be wanting to debate a question of whether we can reach a stage where we can feel very comfortable. And I would say to the speaker, we can't reach that stage now because all of us do understand that a compromise was signed for at one stage or the other.
Prof, quickly, before we take Lindo Guhle, you're in Cape Town. Lindo Guhle will be taking your call. Let's just hear what Prof has to say quickly.
I think what he said, what we said to the students, it's about how to understand the idea of freedom. You can formulate that in two ways. You can formulate that in its ideal form, how life would be like if all their freedoms were achieved in the ideal form. This is how you, kind of idealistic, utopian conception of freedom. You can formulate it in more pragmatic terms as a progressive realization of the freedom. You can ask a question. 22 years later, are we more free in terms of freedom of expression? Are we more free in terms of freedom of movement? Are we more free in terms of freedom of association? You can progressively measure, and that is something that is calculable. And then that's why we ask the kids, in your daily life, are there things that prevented you from being free? Empirically, what stopped you from expressing yourself more freely? What stopped you from accessing information? What stopped you from associating with anybody you want?
Okay.
Has there been actual impediments in your daily life? So we made it more practical so that you measure and calculate the achievement of freedom in a progressive manner and not in its utopian terms.
But, Dr. what does freedom mean to young people? I'm sure it doesn't mean the same thing that it would mean to you.
I think what came out of the intergenerational discourse is this, that some issues pertinent to the concept of freedom have just been marginalized. The generation today, they may say it's hashtag what, hashtag. There are certain issues pertinent, that keep on propping up. These are questions of inequality, like the previous question came up. If you emerge as a leader in an equal society, can you dispense of what you have, which is in itself limited? And we are saying that at the conference, we said to the young people, look, what came out of Kempton Park was highly flawed and limited. And for instance, one, it lacked the true implications of sovereignty. Sovereignty is the question of authority, complete authority over the land, which they do not have. And is it abnormal for a society where sovereignty is limited to come up and realize with what this generation is experiencing? And we are saying to them, engage this problem. It's a serious problem. Engage it and come with answers, because now it's a challenge that faces you. It's a challenge of the day. The older generation did what it could, and it comes out, it's flawed, it's limited. But then how do you add up value? How do you add value to what we have? So that freedom is the right, the limitless right to add value to what you've received, not just to come and accept it.
Okay.
Yeah, that is precisely what we were trying to interact with. Let me just give you another side of that. One young fellow there then started asking us whether what we produced as people who come from the past, whether we are satisfied with the product that we are giving to them as a younger generation. All what we could suggest to them is that, yes, it is your time to go through everything that we have produced. And Professor Nkondo even gave them a document that have all the freedoms that are in the Constitution, and we were trying to channel them to say, look critically at every clause that we have produced, and not just say, yes, it's freedom, it's okay, because we have produced something that we are also telling you. It came through a compromise, and that compromise didn't have certain things that make freedom to be freedom, and that the younger generation's responsibility is actually to critically examine and come up with solutions that would make the future they want, not the future that we wanted.
But, Prof, you have a scenario here where, as a country, we'll be marking for 40 years of June 16, right? And somehow I'm asking myself, it would appear, indeed, each generation has its own needs, and I do not know where Freedom Park, comes into play here. I mean, June 16 obviously is a very important milestone in the history of this country and our liberation struggle. Perhaps let's just talk in context of such achievements of that June 16 detachment. Yeah,
if you look at the mandate of Freedom Park, and if you look at these major documents, the last document it has, it's called, the freedom, the meaning of freedom.
Yeah.
What I was saying is that, what was achieved at Kempton Park was the unconditionality of political liberties, that the freedom of expression should be unconditional. The freedom, of religion should be unconditional. All the political liberties are in the Constitution unconditional. I mean, unconditional.
Yes.
Where we still have to do a lot of work is that the more material, socio-economic freedom, the right to a decent home, the right to work, the right to good health.
Yes.
All the rights that constitute our material life, those rights are conditional, depending on availability of resources.
Hold it there. I want us to take Dougie. Dougie, you are in the Val.
Hi, my friend. I need to put a cat in the room there, or a mouse or something,
Okay.
I want to ask, I think it's that guy in the middle, I don't know what's his name. He was talking about a compromise. If there was never a compromise, there would have never been what you have today. So the compromise came from all sides. It didn't just come from one side. And I think that must be respected. Because if you got a compromise, you should then respect that and work on that. Not try and go out of that compromise and create other havoc or other things now.
Okay.
I mean, the country has been freed since 1994.
Okay, Dougie, but you understand that the compromise did not include the land, right?
No, it did not include. Well, it depends on how you want to look at it.
Well, let's look at it straight.
That's another question and another argument.
Okay.
Let's not go down that road.
Okay, that's fine, Dougie. Let me...
Let's say it like this, if I can put it to you like this. Hello?
Dougie, thank you very much for the call. We need to wrap up. We just left with a minute. Ndatishinas?
Well, basically, what Dougie is trying to come up with is that you can realize fulfillment and satisfaction with an unequal distribution of resources, which is a misnomer. It's not likely to happen. And what we are saying to the generation that's emerging now is that you must interrogate this, and come up with solutions relevant to this problem.
No, what Dougie does not understand is that society is not static. He doesn't have to worry about Dougie. It will happen because every generation will push to go where it wants to go. If a compromise was made on the question of land, the next generation, if it sees it as an obstacle to their freedom, they will make sure that that land is acquired.
Okay, unfortunately we've run out of time. Let's just quickly have a look at our tweets there. Let me see. Yes, question time 2-4. Ask Professor Nkondo which freedom among those he mentioned is the country currently enjoying. Is it economic or political? And why? Well, I guess we all know the answer there. Azola Mkaela says, do you think that government is doing enough to emancipate the black child economically? And the last one from Chirizituani says, your show is inspirational and educational. Keep it up. Okay, thank you very much, Chirizituani there. But unfortunately, we we're still half our show, so we've run out of time for today. A big thank you from me and the crew. Have yourself a wonderful time. Goodbye.